Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. We had already begun the homework and we had gotten through the first four questions from lesson number 17. So let's look at number 5. And I won't write the entire sentence, but only those parts that we need to look at more carefully. So number 5, this is on page 104 in lesson 17. Do we have a volunteer to take a look at that sentence? Sure. أرأيتم شركاءكم. Shuraka is the plural of sharik. Shuraka'akum, because it's the object, the maf'ul. So do you see your partners? So الذين تدعون من دون الله. Now, the ones who you call, tad'una is you call, right? And there is an object that is omitted. Normally in Arabic we would say something like this: tad'unahum. Those ones that you call on them. Hum would go back to alladhina. The shuraka, whom you call them. But that can be omitted and you can say tad'una. The ones you call. Min dunillah, to the exclusion of God. Shuraka'akum. ماذا خلقوا من الأرض? Translation. What did they create in the earth or from the earth? Am lahum, or do they have?
Do they have a portion in the sky?
Shirkun fis samawat, some share of the heavens. In other words, do they have a share of the creation of the heavens?
Would be shirkun.
Shirkun.
Atahum kitab, or they got a book.
Am atahum kitabun, or has a book come to them?
Bal in ya'idu salimuna ba'dahum ba'dan illa hudud.
Bal in ya'adu adh-dhalimuna ba'duhum ba'dan. Ya'idu. And it's in ya'idu. The in here is not a conditional. It's negation. So in ya'idu is the same as la ya'idu. La ya'idu adh-dhalimuna ba'duhum ba'dan.
Oppressors promise among them to among them.
Note this phrase. This is very common in Arabic. Ba'duhum ba'dan. Some of them for some, or some of them to others, and it means each other. So adh-dhalimuna ba'duhum ba'dan, the oppressors to each other. In ya'idu or la ya'idu adh-dhalimun, the oppressors do not promise بعضهم بعضا to each other إلا غرورا except something that is false or that fools them, that makes them deceived. Ghurur would be deception. From أرأيتم شركاءكم الذين تدعون من دون الله. Do you see your associates whom you call besides God? ماذا خلقوا من الأرض. Besides, what did they create of the earth? أم لهم شرك في السماوات. Or do they have a share of the heavens? أم أتاهم كتاب. Or has a book come to them? بل إن يعد الظالمون بعضهم بعضا إلا غرورا. Rather, the oppressors do not promise them each other or themselves anything except for deception. Ghurur, deception. Number 6. وَيَبْسُطُونَ إِلَيْكُمْ أَيْدِيَهُمْ. أَيْدِيَهُمْ. Why is it أَيْدِيَهُمْ? Because it's the maf'ul. يَبْسُطُونَ, they spread. أَيْدِيَهُمْ, their own hands. So أَيْدِيَ is the object. What is being spread? They're spreading or they're extending their hands. وَيَوَدُّونَ لَوْ تَكْفُرُونَ. And they wish لَوْ تَكْفُرُونَ, for you to be disbelievers. Is that clear? يَوَدُّونَ, they wish لَوْ تَكْفُرُونَ أَنْتُمْ, for you to disbelieve. Takfuruna is the antum form. Number 7. That first word, let's break it down. Fa, li, and then it's an-nabi. I should write that better. Falin nabi. When we have the harful jar li that is joined to a word that already has alif lam, we drop the alif in writing. We say lin nabi, like that. And then the fa is a prefix. فَلِلنَّبِي فَلِلنَّبِيِّ قَالَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا مِنْ قَوْمِنَا. So for the Prophet, or to the Prophet, said those who disbelieve مِنْ قَوْمِنَا, from our people. And then there's 2 dots, colon after that. What did they say? مَا نَرَاكَ إِلَّا basharan mithlana. And that word naraka is compound of 2 words, nara plus ka. Nara plus ka. Notice that nara by itself is written with a ya, but when there is a suffix that comes to it, then it changes to an alif. So naraka, when it's combined, we say naraka with an alif. And that whole sentence is the maf'ul bih. That's what's being said. They say, ma naraka, we do not see you, illa basharan, except a man. Mithlana, who is like us. Question? If الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا مِنْ قَوْمِنَا was not there, but it was referring to the unbelievers, then you would say قَالُوا. So if it's already understood that we're talking about the unbelievers, you'd say فَلِلنَّبِيِّ قَالُوا. They said مَا نَرَاكَ إِلَّا بَشَرًا مِثْلَنَا. And finally, number 8, قَالَ. And then that word is satajiduni. So let's break that down. We have sa, which is for the future. We have tajidu, you will find, from wajada yajidu, to find. And then ni. Right? And ni is the noon plus ya, meaning me. So, you shall find me. Insha'Allahu, if God wills. Sabiran. You will find me patient. Wala a'asi, from asa ya'si, to disobey. La a'asi, I will not disobey. Laka, for you, amran, any command. Amran is the maf'ul of a'si. I will not disobey what? A command.
If you didn't have the seed, then how would that be translated? Not the seed.
If you didn't have sa tajiduni, if you just had tajiduni,
Yes.
you find me. It could also mean you will find me, but it's not explicit that it's the future. And then we have a few more actually. Ja'ala Nuhun, Nuh put, fi fulkihi. This word is fulk, ark. Don't confuse that with the word falak, which means orbit or celestial sphere. This is fulk, which is ship or ark. Ja'ala Nuhun fi fulkihi. He put in his ship min kulli zawjayni, out of every couple or every pair, ithnayn, 2. Out of every pair, so there might be, say, hundreds of pairs of cats. He took 2. There might be hundreds of pairs of goats. He took 2. So it's a poetic kind of expression. Number 10. وَإِذَا سَأَلُوهُ عَنِ الرُّوحِ قَالَ إِنَّ الرُّوحَ مِنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّي. And when they ask him, سَأَلُوهُ, they ask him, عَنِ الرُّوحِ, about the soul or the spirit, قَالَ, he said, or he will say, إِنَّ الرُّوحَ, verily the soul, min amri rabbi, is from the command of my God or the affair of my God. Amr can have one of two meanings. It's the matter of my God, it's the affair of my God, or it's the command of my God. And this usage of idha is a little odd, because idha normally is used when the meaning is future. So the sentence should mean, when they ask him, he will say. But it seems like the sentence is intending it to be used in the past tense. So that's an unusual usage for idha. And 11. أَتَأْمُرُونَ النَّاسَ بِالْخَيْرِ وَتَنْسَوْنَ. Good. That's the second person masculine plural of a naqis verb. Right? It's the antum form. Tansawna. Nasiya yansa. So tansawna anfusakum. أنفسكم. أنفس is the plural of nafs, oneself. أنفسكم is yourselves. تنسون أنفسكم. Do you command people to do what is good and you forget yourselves? Nasiya is to forget. And then we have 10 sentences to translate into Arabic. So feel free to call out this. Witnesses will testify against you. Yashhadu or sayashhadu. And you don't need the sa, but to make it explicit, the prefix sa will make it future. So yashhadu or sayashhadu. Ash-shuhudu. Alayka. And hell will consume you all. وَتَأْكُلُ, because nar is feminine. تَأْكُلُ النَّارُ كُلَّكُمْ. It will consume all of you. And because the second part is plural, we might guess that the first part is also plural. So it might be better to say alaykum. But alayka is also possible. You can also say ash-shuhada for witnesses. Number 2, when you disobeyed his orders. Lamma asayta awamirahu. Awamirahu. Awamira because it's the maf'ul. You disobeyed his commands. The plural of amr in the sense of command is awamir. Umur does not mean commands, it means affairs. Like there's certain matters or affairs that remain. Awamir is commands. The singular is the same, but the plural is different. So, asayta awamirahu, he was not pleased with you. Ma radiya anka, he did not become pleased with you. Or you can say ma kana radiyan anka. He was not pleased with you.
You don't say bika?
No, radiya anhu.
Is that just because it's radiya, that's what goes with radiya?
Yeah, the verb radiya is used to. It's used with and it can also be used with ba. So you can say raditu bil Islam. I'm pleased with Islam. But
Is that not a person?
normally, just when you want to say that you are pleased with something, you will say an. So raditu anhu. I became pleased with him. And the usage of radiya bihi, I think it's limited to when something is when you're pleased with something in a certain capacity. So I think the usage is slightly different. In the dua we say raditu bil Islami dinan. I'm pleased with Islam as a religion. So you're pleased to have Islam as a religion. It's not that you became satisfied with Islam. So there's a slight difference in usage, and we can probably look in the dictionary to see if there's more specificity as to exactly what the proper usage for each is. But here you should use an to give the right meaning. Number 3, I do not know which fruit is best for eating. La adri, you can say la a'lamu or la a'rifu as well if you wish. Which fruit? Ayyu fakihatin. Ayyu fakihatin. Which fruit? Is best for eating, so ahsanu for eating, lil akli, lil akli. لا أدري أي فاكهة أحسن is best للأكل for eating. It's not the passive active participle, it's akl, eating. It's a infinitive. Akl means to eat. It's best to eat.
It's not the masdar.
It's the masdar.
It is the masdar. Okay.
Masdar or infinitive. You can say khayrun as well. So instead of saying ahsana, you can say khayrun. Khair implies more virtuous, to be better as opposed to evil. So the opposite of khair is shar. Whereas ahsan is not as opposed to evil, but it gives more the sense of preferable to eat. So ahsan is probably better to use there. But you can say khayrun as well. Number 4. The alms they brought were more than the alms prescribed for them. What is the alms? As-sadaqah.
See, that's the object. You still put it first?
You will put it first here, even though it's going to be the object, because you're saying the alms that they brought them. In Arabic, that's how you would word it. The alms which they brought them. Sadaqatu, no, it's the subject in the sentence.
Oh, it's the subject?
It's the subject. And then you will say, Allati ja'u biha. So, the alms which they brought them. The biha goes back to that sadaqah allati. That the biha goes to the allati, which is describing a sadaqah, which they brought it. Is that structure clear? As-sadaqatu allati ja'u biha. You could also say ataw biha. So, as-sadaqatu allati ja'u biha. Question? It's not the fa'il, it's the subject. Because we're talking about the sadaqah. It's the mubtada. There's no direct object. It's basically we're saying the alms were more. As-sadaqatu kanat
After ja'u, what do you think?
biha.
Oh, that's okay.
Or ataw biha. So, which they brought is kind of a parenthetical sentence, a phrase. As-sadaqatu allati ja'u biha. The alms, what about the alms? That's the mubtada, and now the khabar. Kanat akthar, or more than. So kathiran would mean were much. But we're saying not kathira, but akthar.
And is Akthar that Mansub then, or
No, kanat. Kanat also has a pronoun here that goes back to the sadaqah. And then this akthar is the khabar. Kanat, that sadaqah was akthara. Then the alms, min as-sadaqati, prescribed, allati, kutibat. Yes, fasting has been prescribed for you. Kutiba alaykumus siyamu. So kutiba, to be written, means to be prescribed. The word prescribe in English, it has the word scribe in it. Scribe means to write. So that's the same sense as the word kutiba in Arabic, to be written.
alaykum?
Allati kutibat, for them, alayhim. I heard you say alayhum.
Yeah, but that's not right.
Yeah, well, there's actually a qira'ah of Quran where they do say alayhum. But that's one accent that's used in Arabic. The more accepted accent is to say alayhim. It's not wrong to say alayhum, but it sounds a little odd to the ear that's used to the normal pronunciation. Akthara is the khabar of kana. And kanat akthara until the end is all of that is the khabar for as-sadaqah. So as-sadaqah كانت أكثر من الصدقة التي كتبت عليهم.
Min accent more than.
أكثر is mansub because it's the khabar of kanat. And min means more than. Well, it means than.
More is coming
From the akthara. More is akthar and min is more than. Now note that we're using akthar, which is masculine, even though it's referring to sadaqah. Right? Because we have a min. Whenever you say more than, you always use the singular masculine form. So you will say, Muhammad akbaru min Ali akbar. If it's feminine, you will still say akbar. You'll say Fatimatu akbaru min Zainab. You won't say Fatima kubra min Zainab. So whenever you're comparing two things, you always use the singular masculine form. Muhammad akbaru min Ali or Fatima akbaru min Zainab. Number 5. She looked and saw that he had told the truth. She looked, نظرت, and saw, وَرَأَت. So the word is ra'a, feminine form is ra'at, that he had told the truth. أنه كان قد صدق. أنه كان قد صدق, that he had told the truth. Or you can say أنه قد قال الحق, that he had said the truth. Sadaqa, no, sadaqa is the verb. Sadaqa is to tell the truth. And kadhaba is to lie. Number 6, they lied to each other when they said they would be their father's heirs. So number 6, they lied to each other. Kadhaba. Kadhaba means to lie. Kadhaba.
But it's not they lie.
But who is it? Now remember, each other we have to say ba'duhum ba'dan. So the fa'il will be ba'duhum. Kadhaba ba'duhum. And because the subject is mentioned, we'll use a singular verb. So kadhaba ba'duhum ba'dan. So you will translate that some of them lied to others, or they lied to each other. They lied to each other when they said, Lamma qalu, when they said what? Now, if we want to say they would be each other's heirs, then we don't want to put the two colons because we're not quoting the speech directly. Lamma qalu innahum. But you don't need the innahum. So you can take that out and say they would be their father's heirs. Sayakununa. What's the plural of heir in Arabic? What's heir? Warith, and the plural is? You can say waratha is probably the most common. You can say wurrath. You can say warithun. But it would be warithin in this case. And then the noon would drop because it's mudaf. So you say yakununa warithi abaihim. Abaihim. So if you want to use warithun, you'd have to make it warithin and then drop the noon. So yakununa warithi abaihim. Or you could say yakununa warathata abaihim. Or waratha is plural. Or wurratha abaihim. If it were two people, then you would say كذب بعضهما بعضا لما قالا سيكونان وارثي آبائهما or أبويهما. كذب بعضهما. You'd make that dual if you wanted to say the two of them lied. It's always easier to assume that the sentence is plural. That's why in most modern colloquial Arabic accents, the way that people speak, they generally don't use the dual. So two people, it's treated as if it's plural. But in classical Arabic, the dual is obviously used. And it's distinguished from the plural. Number 7, have you forgotten that the light of faith is from the heart? So, hal nasita anna nur al-imani is from the heart. Minal qalbi. Instead of saying hal nasita, you can also say anasita. Is a anasita. Because hal and both introduce questions. Number 8, I am not aware of anyone more truthful than him. To say I am not aware, it's probably better to use la a'rifu. I don't know. Adri is used for a fact, so I don't know a fact. You can say la a'lamu as well. La a'lamu of anyone? أحدا, I don't know anyone. More truthful than him? أصدق, because it's describing the person. أحدا أصدق منه. Number 9, they are deluded in that which they say. Whom? They are deluded. مغرورون in that which they say. فيما قالوا or يقولون.
What is the verb there then? Just a root form of it?
غر. غر means to deceive. غرتهم الحياة الدنيا. The worldly life, غرتهم, has deceived them. It can mean to be arrogant, but because an arrogant person is deceived. So it doesn't literally mean to be arrogant, but maghrur can mean somebody who has been taken by their fancy. And when they've been taken by their fancy, that makes them arrogant. So literally a maghrur person is a deceived person.
Why is there a meaning then? Is that just a...
Because gharra means to deceive.
Oh, this is present tense, they are deluded.
So the person that deceives is ghar, and the one that is deceived is maghrur. It's the passive participle.
Right.
So gharra does not mean to become deceived. Gharra means to deceive someone. Then ghurra, the passive, is what means to be deceived. So this is maghrur, to be deceived. Hum maghruruna fima yaquduna, in what they say. And we see them lying. وَنَرَاهُمْ, or you can say وَنَحْنُ نَرَاهُمْ, that's fine too. Lying. يَكْذِبُونَ, وَنَرَاهُمْ يَكْذِبُونَ. And number 10, I wish we were mightier than our enemy. أَوَدُّ لو كنا أقوى من عدونا. And it could also be أعز. أعز, to be mighty. Questions?
For number 6, can you go over again they would be? How did you, what word did you use again?
Yeah, there's no literal way to translate they would be in Arabic. So what we generally say is they will be.
They will be. What word did you use? I forgot what word.
سيكونون. كان
Okay.
يكون.
Thank you.
English, you have words like can, for, will, for, shall. Is there anything comparable in Arabic?
Is there something comparable to the helping verbs that we have in English? In general, Arabic does not use helping verbs. The verb form changes. So, for example, I should go will be, for example, ينبغي. ينبغي means to be worthy. Or يجب, it is must. أن أذهب, that I go. Or you can say علي أن أذهب, it is upon me to go. علي. عليك أن تفعل. It is upon you or obligatory upon you to do. When it comes to the passive, I am eaten. So in Arabic we change the form of the verb. Akala, he ate. Ukila, he was eaten. Qatala, he killed. Qutila, he was killed. So generally the form of the verb will change in Arabic. You won't need to use a helping verb. Some of those we've already looked at, and some of them we'll look at in the coming lessons. Alright, let's look at lesson number 18. Does anybody need the notes for lesson 18? So let me give you the notes for lesson 18 right now, and then if you're missing anything else, then you can get it after class. So, lesson 18. Lesson 18. Okay. In lesson 18, we're going to learn the way that the fi'l mudari', the imperfect verb, can change its case. So let me just review what case means again. What is the difference between Zaydun, Zaydan, and Zaydin? I'rab, right? And what that means is that it's the same word. It's always referring to Zayd, the person whose name is Zayd. But there's a different function that's being done in the sentence. Zaydun is probably the subject of a sentence, right? Like, Ja'a Zaydun, Zayd came. Zaydan is probably the object of a sentence. Like, Daraba Zaydan, he hit Zayd. It was done to him. And Zaydin, for example, could be the possessor, right? Kitabu Zaydin, the book of Zayd. The same thing can take place with verbs, but only an imperfect verb. So we can say yaktubu. The dhamma here means it's just a regular indicative verb, right? Yaktubu, he writes. That can change to yaktuba, which can convey a meaning like for him to write, or that he writes. And it can change to yaktub, which can mean, for example, if he writes. Now that depends on what the sentence is, what words come before it that cause it to become mansoob or majzoom. There's different meanings that can be conveyed, but the meaning or the sense of the verb will change. So one of the possibilities with the fi'l mudari' or the imperfect verb is that it can become mansoob. And that's sometimes called the subjunctive, but it's better if you learn the word mansoob, because subjunctive is not an Arabic term. It's derived from Latin grammar. It doesn't apply exactly to Arabic. So learn the word mansoob. Mansoob. Right? Normally, the verb is marfu'. It can become mansoob or majzoom.
So is it mansoob just like a noun is mansoob? It's now the object?
No, for a verb to be mansoob does not mean that it's an object. It has its own reasons for becoming mansoob. Right. Sorry? There's different words that will come that will change the case of the verb or the mood of the verb. It doesn't correspond to how a noun changes its i'rab.
Obviously, it's trying to tell a different.
It gives a different meaning for the verb.
For the sentence, right?
Yes, but it's not an object. A verb will never be a maf'ul.
Sure.
But it can have different senses. So one thing to keep in mind now is how the verb changes. The second thing to keep in mind is what words are they that change the verb. The first thing we're going to look at is how does a verb change. Right? Nouns change in different ways. Zayd, when its i'rab changes, it can go from Zaydun to Zaydan and Zaydin. But a dual noun does not change like that. Instead, we have an alif or a ya. Zaydane or Zaydaine. A plural noun will have a waw or a ya. Muslimuna, Muslimina. Right, so there's different ways that noun can change. Some have a dhamma, fatha, kasra. Some have an alif or a ya. Some have a waw or a ya. And there's other possibilities as well. Verbs are the same way. When a verb is marfu, which is the normal state for a fi'l mudari', look at the first chart. Generally, that marfu case, or that raf', it will show by a dhamma, or by a noon, or it will not have any sign at all. There's two verb forms that are considered to be mabni and never change. And that is the two feminine plural forms. The third person feminine plural and the second person feminine plural. Yaf'alna and taf'alna. They don't change at all. Whether they're marfu or mansub or majzoom, they don't change. That noon always stays there. Every other noon, which is found in a verb, in the imperfect verb, is only there if the verb is marfu. If the verb becomes mansub, it will be dropped. Which noons are they? We have in the third person, the dual and masculine plural. The third person feminine dual. In the second person, we have the masculine dual and plural. And we have the feminine singular and dual. Those have the noon. And what is left? We have certain forms that do not have a noon. They will show their marfu' case with a dhamma. So let's just quickly go through and write down what are the signs of marfu' case for a normal verb. Right? Remember, a noun does not have a default case. So Zayd by itself is not marfu or mansub or majroor. Zayd by itself is just a noun. It has to be part of a sentence, and then you will say it's the doer, or it's the object, or whatever it is, and it will acquire an i'rab. But for a verb, if there is nothing that makes it mansub or makes it majzoom, it will by default be marfu, because it's telling you something that is taking place. So we'll start with, somebody give me a verb. So we'll take kharaja, yakhruju. Yakhruju. Here we have a dhamma. Yakhrujane. Here we have the noon. Yakhrujuna. Again we have the noon. These are the signs of the marfu' case. Then we have, actually have to write that more carefully. Takhruju, the dhamma. Takhrujane. In takhrujane we have the noon. Yakhrujna, we have nothing. There's no sign of it being marfu' because it's never going to change. Then we have the second person masculine, anta takhruju. What do we have here? Dhamma. Takhrujane, what do we have here? The noon. Takhrujuna, what do we have here? The noon. Then we have the anti, feminine form. تخرجين. What do we have here? The noon. And then تخرجان. What do we have here? The noon again. And then تخرجنا. What do we have here? Nothing. The noon does not change. And then أخرج. What do we have here? Dhamma. And نخرج. What do we have here? Dhamma. So, let's add a splash of color to make it more interesting. In some forms we have a noon. Correct? How many is that? 7. In some forms, we have a dhamma. And how many are they? 5. 5 and 7 is 12. Correct? And we have 2 more forms. And obviously these 2 forms they don't show their i'rab because they never change. So these 2 are mabni. So that's the chart for the signs of raf' in a verb. And if you understand that, then it's very easy to figure out how to make a verb mansub. Wherever the verb is mabni, you don't change it. Wherever there's a noon, when it becomes mansub, you drop the noon. Because the noon is only there for raf'. Wherever there is a dhamma, you will change it to a fatha. Correct? Should I complete the chart to make it clear? So this one is the noon, and this one is the dhamma. Any questions on this? So let's look at our lesson right now. We have the mansub for al-fi'l al-mudari'. And I'll read it off. We have yaf'ala, yaf'ala, yaf'alu, taf'ala, taf'ala, yaf'alna, taf'ala, taf'ala, taf'alu, taf'ali, taf'ala, taf'alna, af'ala, naf'ala. The only thing to note, and you want to circle the yaf'alu and taf'alu. When you drop the noon, you add an alif just to mark the end of that verb. Right? So yaf'aluna has a noon. When we drop the noon, make it yaf'alu, there's an alif that comes at the end. The same thing with taf'alu. So everything is clear, very smooth sailing. We have a nice color-coded chart. No problems, right? But Arabic wouldn't be fun if it were that simple, right? So now we can go back to all of those other types of verbs that we looked at. Al-fi'l al-naqis, for example. And what are we going to do with fi'l al-naqis? What's the problem with fi'l al-naqis? Well, one of the problems is that it doesn't end with a dhamma. Remember? We had yalqa, or yarmi, or yad'u. Right? There's no dhamma. So what do we do in those cases? Well, it's actually very simple. If it ends in an alif, like yalqa or yara, can you put a dhamma on an alif? You can't put anything on an alif. So there was no dhamma to begin with, and there will be no fatha that will come.
So there's nothing that tells us.
Nothing that tells you whether it's mansub or marfu. Now, the ones that have a noon, the noon will still drop. The ones that are mabni, they will still be mabni. Are we good so far? Now, that's if it ends in an alif. If it ends in a waw, like yad'u, it's hard to say yad'u. So we never put the dhamma on yad'u. Right? We never said yad'u. We said yad'u. Is it hard to put a fatha on a waw? No. You can say yad'uwa. So if it's fi'l naqis and it ends in a waw, when it was marfu' there was no dhamma. But now there will be a fatha. Yad'uwa. The regular rule for mansub applies. And when it ends in a ya, like yarmi. Now it's really hard to say, it's really hard to say yarmiyo. Right? So we never said yarmiyo. We said yarmi. But is it hard to say yarmiya, to add a fatha to a ya? No. A fatha is never hard. In Arabic, fatha is considered to be the easiest of the vowels. It's called akhafful harakat. The lightest, easiest, kind of the happy-go-lucky haraka. It can go on any letter. So you can say yarmiya. You can say yad'uwa. So in both of those cases, the regular rules will apply. It's only if it ends in an alif that you can't have a dhamma, you can't have a fatha. So there's a little bit of detail, but it's not hard to understand.
So to paraphrase that, for anything that ends in an alif,
Anything that ends in an alif,
the places where there was a dhamma to a fatha,
you will not have a fatha.
anywhere there's a noon, it will change.
The noon will always change. The ones that are mabni will always stay mabni.
And when there's a waw or a ya,
And if there's a waw or a ya at the end of the fi'l mudari', then that can take the fatha. So let's go through the chart. Verbs like yalqa, yara, they're conjugated normally, but the forms that would take a fatha do not do so. So yalqa becomes yalqa, yalqaya, yalqaw, and then talqa, just like it would normally be. Talqaya, yalqayna, talqa, talqaya, talqaw, talqay. The noon still drops. Talqaya, talqayna, alqa, nalqa. If you don't understand why that is, then refer back to the chart where we had the marfu and just drop the noons. That's the only change that's taking place. So you will need to spend a little bit of time reviewing it, but it's not difficult. Now, for verbs like yahdi or yarmi, and for verbs that end with the weak letter waw, the sign for marfu is dropped. In the forms that have a dhamma, they will take a fatha. Right? How is yahdi conjugated? We have yahdiya, yahdiya, yahdu, tahdiya, tahdiya, yahdina. Yahdina does not change. Tahdiya, tahdiya, tahdu, tahdi. It was tahdina, the noon drops. Tahdiya, tahdina, ahdiya, nahdiya. And for yad'u, we have yad'uwa, yad'uwa, yad'u, tad'uwa, tad'uwa, yad'una, tad'uwa, tad'uwa, tad'u, tad'i, tad'uwa, tad'una, ad'uwa, nad'uwa. Again, if you refer back to the original chart that had the normal conjugation and just drop the noon, then it'll become clear how most of those forms were formed. The one thing to remember for all of these types of verbs is that the feminine plural, third person and second person, does not change. I'm not going to give you a memory device to help it, but you can make up some kind of story about a group of women when they come together to remember that one doesn't change. But memorize that does not change because the feminine dual and the second person feminine singular will change. That noon will drop. So it's not all of the feminine forms. It's only the feminine plural. 2 forms that are mabni. So that's how you form a mansub verb. Now the question is, when do you want to do this? When do you want to go through the trouble of changing a verb from marfu to mansub? There's several circumstances. One is if there is a word that means so that. Okay? And there's several words in Arabic that can convey that meaning. The word hatta, one of its meanings is in order to, or le, or kay, or likay. All of these words sort of mean in order to. So you can say, for example, قرأت حتى أعلم. I read in order to know. If I say أعلم, it means I know. But if I say حتى أعلم, it means in order to know. Or I can say قرأت لأعلم, or كي أعلم, or لكي أعلم. We have other examples as well. This is one usage. If you look at some examples from the Quran, لِيَغْفِرَ لَكَ اللَّهُ, so that God may forgive for you. لِيَغْفِرَ. لِيُعَذِّبَ اللَّهُ, so that God will punish the al-munafiqeen, the hypocrites. لِتَعْلَمُوا عَدَدَ السِّنِينَ, so that you may know the number of sinin, years. Plural of sana. كَيْ نُسَبِّحَكَ كَثِيرًا. Sabbaha yusabbihu means to glorify. So كَيْ نُسَبِّحَكَ, so that we may glorify you. And they can come with a negative verb as well. So كَيْ لَا يَكُونَ دُولَةً بَيْنَ الْأَغْنِيَاءِ مِنْكُمْ, so that it will not be dulatan, like back and forth between or among the rich. لِكَيْ لَا تَأْسَوْا عَلَى مَا فَأْتَكُمْ. Ya'sa means to regret. كَيْ لَا تَأْسَوْا, so that you will not regret over what you have lost. لِكَيْ لَا يَعْلَمَ بَعْدَ عِلْمٍ شَيْئًا, so that he will not know after having knowledge, anything. Right? For a person to forget after they used to know, that's لِكَيْ لَا يَعْلَمَ, for them not to know, بَعْدَ عِلْمٍ, after they had known, شَيْئًا, anything. شَيْئًا is the maf'ul of يَعْلَمَ. لِكَيْ لَا يَعْلَمَ شَيْئًا, so that they will not know anything. Is that clear? Now, you want to review those sentences and make sure that you can understand them. But is the concept clear that the sense of the verb has changed from يَعْلَمُ or لَا يَعْلَمُ, he doesn't know, to لِكَيْ لَا يَعْلَمَ, in order for him not to know. Another sense of the mansub verb is an emphatic negation with lan. Okay? Definitely not. So I can say, for example, أذهب, I go. I can negate it. لا أذهب, I do not go. But if I want to negate it definitively, it will be lan adhaba.
This is just not possible.
Yeah, it will not happen. In the Quran, God says to Musa, lan tarani. Well, certainly you will not see me. لَنْ يَبْعَثَ اللَّهُ مِنْ بَعْدِهِ رَسُولًا. God shall most certainly not send after him a messenger. فَلَنْ يَغْفِرَ اللَّهُ لَهُمْ. Most certainly God will not forgive for them their sins. لَنْ تَنَالُوا الْبِرَّ, or لَنْ تَنَالُوا الْبِرَّ. You shall never attain, nala means to attain. You shall never attain goodness. لَنْ تَخْرُجُوا. You shall never depart. مَعِيَ أَبَدًا. With me, ever. So you can translate it as never. You can translate it as most certainly not. And that's something which is a little ambiguous in meaning. And one other note with hatta. Earlier we mentioned that hatta can mean in order to. That's one meaning. But it can also mean until. And the two are related. Right? Sometimes either meaning can work. But one meaning is until such time as. So for example, حَتَّى يَمِيزَ الْخَبِيثَ مِنَ الطَّيِّبِ. Until such time as مَاذَا يَمِيزُ. It's from the same root as imtiyaz, to be separated or to be distinguished. Until the khabith, the impure, can be distinguished from the pure. حَتَّى يَلِجَ. That's from walaja, yalijo, to pass through. Hatta yalija, until it passes. That la yadkhuluna al-jannata, they shall never enter paradise. Hatta yalija al-jamalu, until a jamal, a camel, passes fi sammil khayat, through the eye of a needle. Famous parable. Hatta yaqula, until they say. Hatta tasta'nisu wa tusallimu. Right? Don't enter houses until you become familiar, and tusallimu, say salam. Say assalamu alaikum. Question? And in addition, we have the word an, which means that. This also makes a verb mansub. And sometimes it comes in a compound form. So you will see it. Notice the spelling. This is the correct spelling. If I want to say le an, right? So that, it'll be written like this. And if I want to say le an la, it'll be written like this. Le Allah. If I want to say an la, then it will be written like this in many cases. Allah is basically an la. So that's very common. Examples from the Quran. Inna Allaha ya'murukum. Indeed, God commands you an tadhbahu, that you slaughter baqaratan, a cow. A'udhu billahi, I seek refuge with God, an akuna, that I might be.
I'm not making both verbs and nouns.
No, this is not anna, this is an.
Oh, okay.
Anna has a subject and a predicate. This is not anna, this is an. It doesn't have a subject and a predicate, it just comes before a noun. Before a verb. An akuna min al-jahilin. I seek refuge in God that I might become one of the ignorant. Umirtu, I was commanded, an akuna min al-muslimin, that I should be, or that I be among the believers. Allah takhafu, that you might not fear. Wala tahzanu, and not have regret or have sadness. Allah aqula, that I might not say ala Allahi, about God, illa al-haqqa, except what is right. Question? And then finally, there is the letter fa, which sometimes comes in a sentence to give the meaning for something to take place. It gives a consequence. And that usually comes after a non-affirmative sentence. In books of grammar, they've mentioned exactly what types of sentences, a negative sentence or a command, a negative command, for example. There's certain types of sentences where there's a consequence to what is being expressed in the sentence. If that consequence is expressed with fa, the verb that comes after it will be mansub. Right? So, for example, ma ra'aytuhu, I did not see him. فَأَدْعُوَهُ إِلَى الْبَيْتِ. If I had seen him, then I would have called him to the house. So that ad'uahu is a consequence of what comes before. Right? Had I seen him, I would have called him at home. So I did not see him for me to call him.
So this fa is not the same as the fa when you say.
It's not a regular conjunction.
So,
Yeah, it's not a regular conjunction, so or then. It's not that fa. La taf'al fatandama. Don't do it so that you will, not so that you will regret, but don't do it lest you regret, or else you will regret. Right? So that tandama, to regret, that nadama is a consequence of doing it. Now, when you translate it, lest is often a good translation, so that you not. Right? The consequence is not a consequence of the negative, but of the affirmative. So, don't do it. If you do it, you will regret. I did not see him. Had I seen him, I would have called him to my house. Right? And to express that it's a consequence, the verb becomes mansub. So, ma ra'aytuhu fa'ad'uwahu. Question? That concludes lesson 18. Inshallah, next week, again, we will start at 7:30. We will start with the homework, and then we'll break for salat, and we will continue after the prayer. So we can conclude with salawat.